For the last 3 years, the Open champion has come from across the Atlantic. In July 1998, the American challengers landed on the west coast of England, once again to compete for the most coveted championship of them all.
It's going to be good drama, let's face it. Down the stretch, there's going to be a lot of fine players there, and I wouldn't be surprised if an American won again.
I love it over here. I'd rather play this type of golf than our stadium golf back home.
This is the oldest tournament in the world and probably the greatest championship in the world, and it doesn't get any more than this one.
In the first half of the century, the port of Liverpool boasted 7 miles of dockland. From here, the great ocean liners competed for the fastest crossing. Further north, members of Royal Birkdale Golf Club took inspiration from these great vessels in the building of their new clubhouse. It was to resemble a ship sailing amid a mountainous sea of sand dunes. This year it hosted the 127th Open Championship. The competition not for the blue ribbon, but the gold medal and the old claret jug. Of all the great champions, one name stands out in the history of Royal Birkdale.
F. Ballesteros.
It was here in 1976 that Severiano Ballesteros made his Open debut.
The first that we knew about it was, I think it was a telephone call at the club to say that there was a foreigner had arrived at Birkdale Station and they couldn't understand a word about what he was saying, but they rather gathered that he was a golfer and that they probably thought he was playing in our competition.
Not only did Seve play, he finished runner-up to Johnny Miller, and from the front left of Birkdale's 18th green, the irrepressible Spanish teenager produced a chip shot that thrilled the golfing world. "22 years on, another young Spaniard, Sergio Garcia, is seen as Seve's natural successor. During practice at Birkdale, much was made of the young amateur players, and Garcia arrived with an unprecedented list of amateur titles, including the 1998 British Amateur Championship on the links at Muirfield.
Mr. Kushner.
Matt Kuchar.
He's the amateur.
138.
The Americans were also making an assault on the silver medal. Matt Kuchar had led the US Masters and finished 14th at the US Open, although he came to links golf as an unknown quantity.
Wow, those are pretty good. This is my first trip overseas for me. I had to get a new passport for it. Haven't seen weather like this before, ever.
Meanwhile, in the winds at Hillside, a fresh-faced 17-year-old Englishman, Justin Rose, was playing in the final qualifier.
I've been up to Birkdale already, and just being there, you just make, it's just such a fantastic buzz they've got around the tournament, and, you want to be there so badly, and this is the only place that can get you there.
Rose qualified comfortably, and by final practice was sharing the tee with Else and Faldo.
17? God, don't you just hate it?
By the end of the week, not many would hate the English Rose. It would be his name on the back pages, not Else or Faldo.
Justin Leonard.
The American challenge was led by the defending champion, Justin Leonard. The US PGA winner, Davis Love, the US Masters champion, Mark O'Meara, and of course the sensational Tiger Woods.
I suppose Tiger Woods would be wonderful, but it would be a wonderful winner, wouldn't he? 160.
Yeah. Johnson.
Your money.
What are you? Play all right?
Mr. Jensen.
Mr. Jensen?
Completing the American clean sweep of major title holders was the recent US Open winner Lee Jansen, and on his bag, Dave Musgrove, who'd played his part in winning 4 major titles, once with Ballesteros at Lytham in 1979.
Unless you caddy for Seve when he was at the top, you didn't know what caddying was. That's the only way to learn what we do, was to caddy for him when he was at the top.
Today, Seve is still a demanding taskmaster. It's already well documented that the legendary Arnold Palmer paved the way for the US professionals to come to the Open Championship. He won the first of his 2 titles at Birkdale in '61, and his fellow countrymen have continued to follow his path ever since.
I think we could probably use Jack Nicklaus's locker, don't you now?
Jack Nicklaus was conspicuous by his absence at Royal Birkdale, injury ruling him out of the Open for the first time since 1962, leaving just one of the game's big three.
Here are two gentlemen that have really been great ambassadors for the game, for the Open, and for the world. I mean, their manners have been impeccable. They've been great champions, charismatic champions, but as the Chinese say, nothing shall last.
Royal Birkdale, proudly displaying 18 newly constructed greens this year, has produced great American champions in the past, most recently Johnny Miller in '76 and Tom Watson in '83. But who would be in the frame in '98?
78.
Home hopes were pinned on Colin Montgomery and young Lee Westwood, who'd been in outstanding form. But whoever won would have to cope with thick rough and winds gusting off the sea at up to 30 miles per hour. Practice was becoming expensive.
Well, he's lost more balls this week than the previous 4 years I've caddied for him. In 3 days.
By Wednesday, July the 15th, the scene was set.
You have no choice. You have to make the shot, and nothing's going to stop me from making it. You have to believe that.
Here is the regional forecast for Merseyside. Dry with hazy sunny spells after morning mist has burnt off. The wind will be westerly 10 to 15 miles per hour.
Of the 127th Open Championship. This is game number 1. On the tee, Jean-Louis Gabet.
It was a Frenchman who hit the first shot at this year's Open. Playing with Guepe was Gary Evans, who had the honour of getting the '91 Open at Birkdale underway. Evans had a first-round 69, but understandably was even more excited by the birth of his second child 24 hours later. While Yoshinori Mizumaki delivered an early eagle at the 5th hole in blasé fashion.
I love this golf course because it's extremely difficult, but it's fair. Because all the trouble's right in front of you.
By the 9th, Tiger had taken his first chunk out of Royal Birkdale, cutting the dogleg and reducing the 414 yards to a drive and a flick.
To me, it makes no sense to lay up when I can carry that bunker and put it right in front of the green.
Out in only 30 shots, he finished 5 under par and in the lead.
Tomorrow I can take it easy and not have to force the issue to get back in the tournament because I'm right there right now.
Also in the hunt was Woods' playing partner Nick Price, the last non-American to win the Open at Turnberry in 1994. This would give him a birdie at the second on his way to a 64. But not surprisingly, the leaderboard was dominated by the United States at the end of the first round. Fred Couples, who's had 7 top 10 finishes at the Open, shot a 66. And John Huston, the man with magnets in his mattress to aid back problems, went one better to share the lead with Woods. This recovery at the 18th gave him another birdie and a 65. So the magnets of Houston and the magnetism of Tiger made headlines at the end of day 1. The players took full advantage of the benign conditions, but it was the last they saw of them.
This is game number 51. On the tee, Justin Rose.
As for the amateurs, when Justin Rose teed off at 11:25, he was about to embark on the week of his life. Sergio Garcia had a subpar first round, but as his mentor Ballesteros once said, this game is great, but also, especially at the British Open, very strange.
We try not to over-caddy, don't we?
Always trying, yeah, just definitely. We're just a bunch of rats.
Show up, keep up and shut up.
Despite the tantrums, it can be a lucrative business carrying a champion's bag.
I still remember when I was going to the last hole, 2 shots ahead, and I was the only player on the par for the tournament.
And he said, looked at the board and he said, well, I can 4-putt and still win. And I said, well, I've got a bet on that the winning score will be under par.
So make sure you make 2 putts from off the green.
Okay, I 2-putt. So he gets all this, takes a swing at it from about 40 yards and finishes up like this, and just rammed it in.
And I make 2 putts, so I was not only happy because I won, I was happy because he won the bet.
Didn't line it up particularly. I 2-putt and did, you see.
Another man to caddy for Seve in those glorious early days was Pete Coleman.
Everybody knew Seve, really. I mean, because of his flair. I mean, he was like a new kid on the block.
I imagined it last year, though, sort of at the end of the Open at Troon. They had that sort of sign up there, well done, Justin. And that's something that stayed in my mind ever since.
Overnight rain should die out, leaving sunny intervals and scattered showers. However, the afternoon will see southwesterly winds picking up to 25 miles per hour.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, no, let's get the day over. No, what you should do is...
Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your cars and go home. Today's round has been cancelled due to inclement weather.
That's how we're returning all money. Please go.
On the tee, John Daly.
John Daly teed off in good humour in the rain, but 4 hours later was angrily heading for home after shooting 10 at the 18th. There were huge crowds at Birkdale on day 2. Over 43,000 showed up, many to see one man, the leader and pre-tournament favourite. But the wind played havoc with Tiger's tricks.
You are kind of getting beaten up out there because of playing all that wind, but you know that if you can just hang in there, you'll be all right.
Wood's rival for the world #1 spot, Ernie Els, made the cut. But the South African's back problems prevented a serious challenge. Colin Montgomery disappointed again. Despite an eagle birdie finish, he made another early exit. Thomas Bjorn stayed in contention. He dropped just 1 shot to par. This was for birdie at the 17th. Bjorn's Scandinavian colleague Jesper Parnevik also held it together, finishing at level par. Parnevik, of course, so unlucky both in 1995 and again last year. English veteran Mark James came as close as anybody to a hole-in-one in this year's Open at the 7th. James was a challenger when Seve won in '79. But the other half of that partnership was having problems on the second morning. The early tee time came almost too early as the Jansen-Musgrove team struggled to get through the crowds. But Jansen played well in the testing conditions to post one of the few scores under par.
It was an excellent round in the end, especially starting off with a 6 and nearly getting disqualified for being late on the tee.
Your power, what are you there?
For most people, the only way to see the Open is via a television screen. Sir Michael Benalek, secretary of the R&A and the outstanding amateur player of his day, was witness to a new 6-year deal with TV Asahi for the rights to screen the Open in Japan for another 6 years. The operation is huge. The BBC provide live coverage for broadcasters all around the world, with the Japanese and Americans playing leading roles. It involves 42 cameras, 100 miles of cable, over 600 personnel, and enough electricity to power a small village. This year, Ian Baker Finch was behind the camera commentating for ABC from America. Access to the videotape of his '91 win at Birkdale was no problem.
Yeah, I've watched it a lot of times, trying to get the good feelings to flow through the veins again. But, you know, it's just a great memory in the back of my mind. You know, it's always going to be there. Nothing's ever going to go away just because I don't play the same way now as I did then. You know, go on and do something different.
Hosting its 8th British Open will continue in just a minute.
When Baker Finch won, his partner in the final round was Mark O'Meara. A second round 68 this year moved him quietly onto the leaderboard. The cameras would be there to follow the Masters champion at the weekend, but Seve would be cut again. His partner was another former Birkdale winner, Tom Watson. Watson won his 5th Open title here in '83, playing a shot at the last which for pure skill would rival Ballesteros' famous chip of '76.
That was one of the best shots I ever hit under pressure, and of course a 2-iron is, for anybody, especially me, is a difficult club to hit, and to do it successfully when all the chips are down was very meaningful for me.
Like Seve, Watson failed to stay for 4 days, but remains as popular as ever. Unlike Watson, the name Brian Watts is not synonymous with Open history. He'd hardly set the course alight in 5 previous Opens, but during his second round, this quiet American moved to the top of the leaderboard. Out in 35 and back in 34, he was one of only 7 players to break par on a day when many big names retreated. The weather had been rotten all day, but just after 5, it managed to deteriorate. Winds gusted at 50 miles per hour, and play was suspended for 38 minutes. When it resumed, Tiger mounted a salvage operation at the 18th to eventually card a 73.
It's just one of those days where you just got to keep patient and just hang in there. And came out of smelling like a rose.
And roses were smelling pretty good. Justin Rose had the round of the day and his life. That for birdie at the 9th. And this his second at the par 5 17th. Good enough for an eagle. And finally, the birdie putt at the last for a round of 66. In the conditions, even he couldn't quite believe it.
Cool, I think still sort of taking it in, but I'm absolutely delighted. You know, that's one of my best rounds, and to play it in these circumstances is fantastic.
Generous indeed were the odds you could have got on Brian Watts and Justin Rose leading at the halfway stage. Rose claimed that pre-qualifying had held him in good stead in the uncharitable conditions. Sergio Garcia made the cut on 144, but the weather was too much for Kuchar, who reached for his new passport. He had nothing to be ashamed of. When the wind and the rough are up, everybody struggles.
I was born in Montreal. My father's English and my mother's German. I turned pro in 1988. I'd guess 80 to 90% of my tournaments are on the Japanese tour, but I've never been in any kind of situation like this before.
Saturday will be very windy, with gusts up to 30 miles per hour. There'll be sunny intervals in the afternoon with a few blustery showers. Temperatures forecast between 12 and 15 degrees.
Saturday saw the course take another lashing from the elements. The leaders knew that it would be a tough day when the defending champion shot 82. Leonard said that he'd go home, watch TV, and laugh at the other guys. The gale force winds made putting particularly difficult, with players unable to keep the club head on line. Price was not alone in having a nightmare, shooting 45 on the back nine.
Okay.
While Else rushed to the workshop to have more weight added to his putter head. The Duke of York was among another huge attendance, but they hadn't just come to see Tiger. Britain had caught rose fever.
Thank you.
For an amateur to go out in the last group, I'm not sure when that last happened after the second round. Maybe you've got to go back to the days of Frank Stranahan or even possibly Bobby Jones. I can't remember it in my time.
The weight of a nation's expectations might have been too much for some 17-year-olds, but Rose just kept on smiling. On the course, it was a matter of survival. Parnevik had a birdie at the fourth. While Woods tried to ride the wind at the third, but the putt didn't drop. Thomas Bjorn slipped to a 76. But today, that was a good score. Amid the mayhem, Brian Watts remained calm in the storm. Despite the crosswinds on the links and the whirlwind surrounding his playing partner Rose, Watts refused to be fazed. Among the galleries watching Rose was Matt Kuchar, and the American saw his amateur peer become one of only a handful of players to reach the sixth green in regulation. Like Watts, Rose's performance was astonishing. By the 12th, an amateur kid held the outright lead from a journeyman pro from the Japanese tour, and they were followed by a gallery of screaming teenage girls. Seve was right. Strange things do happen at the Open. Meanwhile, the jovial Payne Stewart dallied with the improbable, chipping in at the 14th for a rare birdie. And Mark O'Meara also had an unusual experience at the 6th.
Nice job.
And it got better when he birdied the 13th. O'Meara was proving how invaluable his experience was. He'd won at Birkdale in 1987 at the Lawrence Batley International. A 72 put him in contention again.
You know, I'll just try to go out there tomorrow and hopefully come down the stretch I'll have a chance. If I have that chance, try to seize the moment.
Watts had gone out in 37, and despite dropped shots at the 11th and 12th, got one back with this excellent approach at the 13th to go back to 1 over par and regain the lead from Rose. Two holes ahead, Woods was doing his best to stay in contention despite the elements.
People have no idea how hard it is to keep in there. Just because a couple bad shots, you're in that hay out there, you know, the stuff that you can't really play out of, and you're going to make some high numbers.
Another leading professional from the United States, Ryder Cup player Jim Furyk, he of the unorthodox swing and the cool temperament, was keeping the high numbers to a minimum. He shot a solid 72. Rose faltered to a 39 coming home, but kept dreams of an extraordinary home win alive as he finished just 3 off the pace. His self-effacing nature as endearing as his play. At the end of a treacherous day, Brian Watts led the Open by 2 shots when most experts expected both he and Rose to be blown away. Bigger names had been. Phil Mickelson was another to score in the 80s. Birkdale had bitten back. Parnevik, Furyk and O'Meara shared second place, while the Tiger licked his wounds. Lee Jansen was one of those unable to break 80. Despite this birdie at the 17th, his chance was gone. And his caddy was left to ponder on what might have been.
Whoever you came for, you're just one shot away from the car park, looking for another job. One of the old caddies called Ralph Coffey. He used to care for George Burns. And George Burns hit his second shot to the 18th hole at Colonial Golf Club, and when the ball was in the air, he said, "George," he said, "Ralph, you're fired." And the ball ain't hit the floor yet.
I think that this is a great way to play golf. I mean, if people would ask me prior maybe to my Masters win this year, what was the greatest major championship, I'd have to say that my feeling would be that this one's pretty special.
Actually, when the conditions are as tough as this, what usually happens is that the strongest person mentally is going to win the golf tournament.
When Thursday came about, this was all I was asking for, to have another chance, and I'm right here now. But with this game, you never know what's going to happen.
The weather will be cloudy with outbreaks of rain this morning, with brighter intervals this afternoon. Winds will be moderate, about 10 to 15 miles per hour, but dying down later.
On the final day, the weather relented and scoring became a little easier. Of the leaders, Furyk made up for dropping a shot on the 4th with a birdie on the 5th. And Parnevik made amends for his bogey at 7 by making a 2 on the 8th. Mark O'Meara had dropped shots at the 6th and 7th and was in more trouble on the 8th.
That was huge. You know, I would have loved to have taken a 4 when I was standing where I was after my tee shot, you know, and I walked off with a 3, so that was a big turnaround.
The 3 got him back to 2 over. Watts at the 5th, making up for a dropped shot at the 4th. So the leading 4 all remained on the scores they started with. But not Woods. Birdies at 2, 4, and this 6-iron at the 8th more than made up for dropped shots at the 1st and the 6th. Of those in contention, he was the only player to pick up a shot to par going out. As for Justin Rose, his extraordinary week continued on the 4th green. O'Meara 2 over at the 11th with a 6-iron.
Fight! Fight! Come on, come on, come on! Wow.
Meanwhile, Scotsman Raymond Russell was putting together an excellent round. He went to 4 over with that at the 14th. Needing this to get back to 4 over, Rose for birdie at the 12th. As ever, the smile followed the whole putt. Whatever else, Rose brought a refreshing innocence and spirit to the championship. From the back of the 11th green, Mark O'Meara holed first this to get to within one of the leader Watts. And then this on the 12th to join Watts at the top of the leaderboard.
I came back and made 2 nice putts on 11 and 12, and that really eased the tension a little bit.
Furyk also for birdie on the 12th. That took him to 1 over par, just 1 shot off the pace. Woods had got to the par 5 15th when he took this 3-wood from the rough. Up in 2, a birdie followed. First, Watts finds trouble from the 12th tee.
It is so tough out there. There's not a let-up. You don't have one shot out there that's easy.
And then O'Meara bunkers his approach to the 13th. Both drop shots, and suddenly Woods is only 2 off the lead.
I think the shot, to be honest, that really sticks in my mind was the 3-iron that I played to 14 today. I just came off a bogey on 13. I mean, that was a great shot for me.
O'Meara holed to take the outright lead, but for Parnevik yet again at the Open Championship, it was to be so near and yet so far. As Woods approached 17, he was 3 shots behind. And as he failed to find the green, the chances of his first Open Championship victory seemed remote. For Raymond Russell at the 18th, 2 more would give him a round of 66 and the clubhouse lead. It was a fine effort by the Scotsman, who'd made just 2 cuts from 14 tournaments before the Open. Another birdie, and Tiger's eagerly expected charge was on. At the 14th, Watts was still hanging in there. This guaranteed his par. Jim Furyk's chances went on the 15th, where a 6 would cost him dear.
Turn it. Turn it, Wind.
Tiger Woods took 4-iron for his approach to the last. It wasn't dead, but it gave him an outside chance of finishing 1 over par in the clubhouse. Mark O'Meara, his first Open Championship victory within sight, suddenly found trouble with this approach to the 16th.
I thought if I could shoot somehow about 30, 31, maybe in a 32 if I'm lucky on the back nine. Who knows, I might have a chance of winning.
Woods in the clubhouse at 1 over par. Mark O'Meara drops a shot on 16. It's a three-way tie now between Watts, Woods and O'Meara.
Be right.
Behind O'Meara, Watts overcooks the backspin with his approach to the 16th and now has a tantalizing putt for birdie. Rattled by his bogey at the last, O'Meara's drive finished in the left rough down the 17th. As Watts looked at a birdie, a bogey loomed for O'Meara. At the 18th, the crowd gave Rose an ovation every bit as generous as enjoyed by Woods. Over the course of a week, a remarkable young man had caught the imagination of the British public and now, like Seve 22 years previously, faced a difficult chip from in front of Birkdale's 18th green. But behind him, the drama at the top of the leaderboard unfolded.
Be the right distance.
Didn't hit the greatest of drives on 17, had to lay up, and then I hit a good 9-iron there. I was walking to the green, I saw that Tiger had finished at 1 over. I realized that, you know, I needed to make a birdie because the 18th hole is not the easiest hole to play and expect a birdie.
Watts remained at 1 over par, while O'Meara had this to get back to level. O'Meara led on his own once more.
Get it!
What a way to finish. I can't believe it, really. I mean, it was a tough shot, sort of out the rough, over a bunker. It was one of those incredible moments when the ball sort of got nearer and nearer and nearer, and then it finally disappeared, and I couldn't believe it. The whole week has just been sort of really, really special for me. Unbelievable as well. And to finish on that note was in context with the whole week.
Whether Rose will be another Seve, only time will tell, but for a few precious moments, history repeated itself. Rose, who nearly qualified for the Open at 14 years of age, had finished just one behind Tiger Woods. Garcia, for the record, finished a creditable joint 29th, 10 shots behind Rose.
Well, they have to give me a medal also. A bronze medal.
Great drive.
O'Meara came to the last as the outright leader, while Watts at 1 over par must find a birdie, and the 17th offers the best hope.
Come on. Left run.
Mark O'Meara found the middle of the 18th green, and a warm standing ovation from the huge stands recognised this great golfing ambassador. 2 putts would put him in the clubhouse on level par, leaving Watts needing an up and down at 17 for his birdie to tie the lead. Watts dramatically back to level par, and O'Meara still with a testing putt to stay on that score. .68 for O'Meara, Tiger beaten, and now Watts needing to par the last to force a playoff. Having shown nerves of steel all week, Watts must have felt the pressure.
On my second shot on the 72nd hole, I looked up on the board to see what Mark made, because I needed to know what kind of shot I needed to hit out of the rough. And when I knew that he parred the last hole and I needed to par to tie, I just tried to advance it up there.
Looking like he may finally fall at the last hurdle, the crowd gave Watts a deserved ovation. Again, he must get up and down from the front left of Birkdale's 18th green. A remarkable, phenomenal shot, as good as any seen at Royal Birkdale all week.
When I got up there, I had a real tough bunker shot, as it was a downhill lie, a long shot, and my right foot was out of the bunker. But I just tried to create something in my mind and visualize a good shot, and fortunately it came off to almost perfect.
Parnevik finished with a closing 70 to tie fourth with Furyk, Rose and Russell at 2 over par. For Watts, the tap-in and the epilogue of a 4-hole playoff from the 15th onwards. Justin Rose's achievement is best summed up by the fact that only 3 players played 4 rounds in less shots than he. But after 72 holes, the old claret jug was heading back across the Atlantic once again. But would it be via Japan or straight to O'Meara's home in Florida?
If you guys are front tails, you drive, heads you drive. Here we go. Heads, you drive.
Good luck, Brian. I felt a little bit nervous going into the playoff because, you know, I know my playoff record is so-so. You know, there's a lot on the line in a major championship. The first thought came into my mind was, if you lose in the playoff, you know, deep down inside, you're going to be pretty disappointed. And I didn't want to be disappointed today.
Yes.
Both players laid up from the rough at the par 5 15th. After their second shots, O'Meara held a slight advantage, with Brian Watts all of 100 yards behind the Masters champion's ball. Watts immaculate to 4 feet. O'Meara slightly further away. It's classic match play now. O'Meara in the hole first, and all the pressure on his opponent. Finally, after 73 holes, Watts' nerve had let him down.
I was inside mark on 15 and 16, and unfortunately I wasn't able to come up with the putts.
The next 2 playoff holes were halved in par, so again the questions were asked of Watts on the 18th. O'Meara, just needing to find the green, turns to the person he trusts most on the golf course, one of the rats, his caddy.
Jerry Higginbotham, who's been working for me for about 4 years now, has been pretty much a good luck charm for me.
That 4 from right here earlier.
He's caddied for a lot of fine players besides myself, and since he's come on my bag, I've won, I don't know how many tournaments, 8 tournaments or something like that.
There's a little more wind right to left than we think.
He keeps me pretty relaxed out there.
Okay, get your spot. Okay.
That would put the seal on it. The man who won the Masters aged 41 would add the Open title to that crown unless Watts could hole his bunker shot this time. In practice, his form was such that he didn't think he could make a birdie at Royal Birkdale. By Sunday evening, the relatively unknown Brian Watts was enjoying celebrity status, just like Mr. Lou of Formosa, who gave Lee Trevino a run for his money at Birkdale in 1971.
I'm quite proud of myself to be here. I don't know what it's going to do, but hopefully I moved up a little notch.
Mark O'Meara, one of golf's elder statesmen, won the 127th Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, scene of his first ever European tournament win in 1987. With his Masters victory in April, O'Meara at 41 became the oldest player to win 2 majors in a season. For the caddy, a healthy paycheck and the glory. For the amateurs, merely the glory. Justin Rose may never have another week quite like it, and the Open may wait a long time for another story quite as enthralling.
Champion golfer of the year and the winner of the gold medal with a score of 280, Mark O'Meara.
The winner of the silver medal at 17 years of age, the winner of the gold at 41. Golf is indeed a game for all ages. For the 4th year in succession, the Open Championship has been won by an American. In 1998, Mark O'Meara has added his name to a distinguished list that includes Jones and Palmer, Nicklaus and Watson, who've crossed the Atlantic and taken home the most coveted prize in the game.
At the beginning of my week, that's all I wanted to be, was sort of be a part of it. And, you know, I didn't realise I'd be such a part of it, sort of, you know, almost getting the feel of being a winning player coming up the 18th. That's how I felt today.
Finishing third is not something you should be upset about. I started out good, finished good, and I hit a lot of good shots this week. Unfortunately, wasn't good enough.
I'm extremely happy with myself. I'm very proud that I was able to hang in there today. And Mark's a great guy. He's a class act. If it wasn't me, I was glad that he won.
Of all the championships throughout the world, this is the most special championship, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be this year's Open champion. Thank you very much, everyone.